Another Husbando is finally joining the Zenless Zone Zero roster. Hugo Vlad is our upcoming character from the second half of this 1.7 patch, and we've got a lot to talk about him. In this video today, we are going to break down his full kit, team synergies, his best builds for W-Engine's disk drives, Mindscapes, and of course, how valuable he is from a free-to-play and meta standpoint. Sit back, relax, and let's do this. As a reminder, all of the content in this video is from the creator beta server of Zenless Zone Zero. As such, some information, results, and values may change, although slightly, for Hugo on his full release. Also, don't forget that if you are a new player, you're going to be getting up to 70 pulls and boopons just for doing all of the rewards and events available to us in this 1.7 patch. Thank you very much to Hoyoverse for granting early access, and let's finally talk about Hugo Vlad. Our Heterochromia Husbando is an ice rank attack agent from Mockingbird. His kit features two important concepts. The first key component of Hugo Vlad is the concept of Totalize. Basically, whenever an EX special or ultimate hits a stunned enemy, you can trigger this Totalize effect and do massive damage based on the enemy's remaining stun duration. This really brings up an interesting new kind of gameplay for Hugo Vlad, more based around DPS on that stun meter. The second important concept of Vlad's kit will be this very lengthy core passive, Terminating Verdict. But don't worry, because it's more simple than meets the eye. Firstly, depending on if you have 1 or 2 stun characters in your squad, Hugo's attack will increase by 300 or 900 respectively. Now let's break down the rest of it. When Chain Attack Trick of Fate hits an enemy, or Hugo's attack stun an enemy, he'll enter a Dark Abyss reverb state for 6 seconds, ultimately increasing his crit rate by 12% and crit damage by 25%. The rest of this big chunk of text just describes the Totalize effect in more detail. When you hit the finishing move of EX special attack Soul Hunter Punishment or Ultimate Blaspheme while the enemy is stunned, it triggers that Totalize effect, increasing the damage multiplier of the skill's finishing move by 1000%. As if that wasn't enough damage, for every second up to 5 seconds of stun time remaining, you will get a 280% skill damage multiplier, increased on top of it. And then between 5 and 15 seconds of time remaining, it'll increase by 100% for each additional second. The total increase that can raise the skill's damage multiplier is 3,400%.
That's a lot of damage!
The second half of this text box works pretty similarly to what we've just discussed, but for days instead, up to a 25% of the enemy's days when they recover from stun. Additional ability Prelude to Finality will activate when there's another stun character or ice attribute character in the same squad as Hugo. This by default will increase Chain Attack Trick of Fate's damage by 15% and 50 total % against normal enemies. When Totalize is triggered, the damage dealt by that skill increases by 40%. The EX special attack Soul Hunter Punishment will generate 20 additional energy when triggering Totalize, and that can trigger once every 30 seconds. Overall, we can really see that Hugo's main source of damage and gameplay will totally revolve around Totalize. Let's break down his kit into a little bit more detail, and then we can talk about team synergies as well as his Mindscapes and value as a free-to-play and meta unit. We can see his kit revolves around using basic attack Dark Abyss Quartet and the combos that stem out from it. This will deal 4 attacks forward, dealing physical and ice damage, but what we really want to be concerned with is that 4th attack, which is a shot, or if you hold the basic attack button, a charge shot, and huge points to you if you know what game I'm referencing with that. The second basic attack, Dark Abyss Concerto, activates after the 4th hit of that first basic attack we just mentioned, the shot portion of Dodge Counter Phantasm Slash, or the use of Hugo's Quick Assist. In other words, after you use any of those 3 different kinds of moves, you can go straight into this Dark Abyss Concerto by holding the basic attack button. This will throw Hugo's Scythe in a powerful slash, followed by a shot, dealing ice damage, which you can also hold to be a charged shot, just like the other basic attack. There really isn't anything too spectacular about regular special attack Soul Hunter Judgment, it'll just do some ice damage, although the animation looks pretty cool. EX special attack Soul Hunter Punishment, on the other hand, is pretty important. Note that this is not counted as a heavy attack, but the finishing move of the skill will activate that Totalize. In addition, you can directly follow this move up with that 4th hit of basic attack Dark Abyss Quartet. Something quite different from the other DPS characters is that we actually have to talk about Quick Assist Elegy for Hugo Vlad. This will of course have that shot just like the first basic attack. However, this will also follow up back into that basic attack, just like the EX special does. The same is true about our assist follow-up. You can directly follow it up with the 4th hit of basic attack Dark Abyss Quartet. Dodge Counter Phantom Slash has the same concept. When your decibel rating is at maximum, aka 3000, you know what time it is. Press Q to activate Hugo Vlad's ultimate Blaspheme, throwing the scythe in a powerful spinning attack, launching a finishing move, and dealing powerful, massive ice damage. This skill is not counted as a heavy attack. Oh, and by the way, yeah, this also directly follows up into that 4th hit of basic attack Dark Abyss Quartet. Here is the general upgrade suggestions for all of Hugo Vlad's skills. Just make sure to accumulate a lot of days and then switch in Hugo for that big Totalize damage and you'll master his kit and gameplay. But now it's finally time to get into some team synergies for Hugo. As we will also mention in the value portion of the video, Hugo is a lot more of a specialized unit. This simply just means that you will of course be using him mainly in ice focused content. However, all of the gameplay in Shiyu Defense 7 in this video is off typing and is actually ether weak. I guess that just proves how strong he really is and how much damage that Totalize can actually do. Anyway, Hugo Vlad is very interesting of a DPS in that his team compositions are kinda different. His best team will actually feature 2 other stunners, Lighter and Von Lycone. Lighter not only extends enemy daze duration, but he also has strong fire and ice buffs built into his kit as well. And of course, Von Lycone decreases the enemy's ice resistance, making these 2 Hugo's best partners. Alternatively, you can switch out either stun unit we talked about, Von Lycone or Lighter, for Trigger as well if you have her. This works even better if you have Spectral Gaze, which is Trigger's signature engine, providing defense reduction. There's also one other factor to consider when making this double stun team, and it's very important. Hugo Vlad in this way frees up Astriel or whatever support you're using for other teams. Of course, as we all know, Astriel goes with anybody in the game, but she's finally free to go help your other team compositions and isn't tied to Hugo as a DPS. Of course, if you've seen my videos before, you know I love to leave you guys with a free-to-play team for all of the characters that come out. I will say here that there isn't a particularly amazing free-to-play team, but I did use the Cunning Hairs with Hugo Vlad. Since he really wants to have another character be the on-field presence, I used Anby in this way to get those fast stuns. To be honest though, this team still didn't have any trouble with clearing an off-typing Shiyu 7 and with no buffs generally helping Hugo. Let's go ahead and dive into Hugo Vlad's best builds, followed by his Mindscapes, and then of course we'll answer the question of if you should pull him. Starting with the W engines, Hugo Vlad's best in slot will of course be the signature made for him, Myriad Eclipse. Starting out, this will give us 24% of Hugo Vlad's best stat, which is crit rate. For the actual effect, we get a free 45% crit damage boost. Additionally, we will also get a new buff, the Absolute Zero Death Sentence for 3 seconds when an EX special, chain attack, or ultimate deals ice damage. This gives us a whopping 25% enemy defense shred. With this, you can see why I would personally suggest getting this over Mindscape 1. Although they're both pretty good, and Mindscape 1 gives us a 12% additional crit rate and 30% crit damage when triggering Totalize in that Dark Abyss reverb state. Past this, sadly there isn't too many good options for S ranks, as none of them really give him a boost effect-wise. The second best option I tested was Deep Sea Visitor, which is Ellen's signature, and this was pretty much only used for that advanced stat. Other than that, there's a few A ranks that are also worth mentioning. Both the Battle Pass engine Cannon Rotor and the event limited Marcado Desire are equally good in value for him. Moving on to disk drives, this is where it gets a bit interesting for Hugo. Without any Mindscapes, his best in slot 4 piece is Hormone Punk. I hope we get something a bit more specialized in the future for Hugo, but this is his best for the moment and gives us that 25% attack upon switching in. This does work pretty well for Hugo since he only wants to be on field mainly for that huge Totalize burst damage window. For 2 pieces, you have a lot of options. This will highly be dependent on what stat rolls you get for Hugo as well. The 2 best options would be either to use Branch and Blade Song for the crit damage or Woodpecker Electro for the crit rate. If you have good enough crit stats, you can pull out the Polar Metal for some ice damage. Alternatively, Hugo Vlad is one of the few characters that you could reasonably run a 2-2-2 setup on. This would of course be Woodpecker Electro, Branch and Blade Song, and then your choice of either Polar Metal, Astral Voice, or Hormone Punk. Ultimately for disk drives, either use that 4-piece Hormone Punk with one of the crit sets as your 2-piece, or run 2-piece Woodpecker Electro, 2-piece Branch and Blade Song, and 2-piece Polar Metal, which has the slight edge over Hormone Punk and Astral Voice. As for main stats, your slot 4 should always be crit rate, followed by crit damage if you have enough. Slot 5 should be ice damage bonus, although you can get away with using attack percent with good substats. And slot 6 should only be attack percent. Substats follow the same priority with crit rate, followed by crit damage, followed by attack percent, and then the rest. As for our cute little helper friends, the Bangboos, the best one for Hugo Vlad will be Robin. However, I always love using Snap and Butler whenever I can, and they work extremely well too. For this next section, let's answer the question, should you pull Hugo Vlad? We can attempt this by looking at him from a free-to-play and meta value standpoint. Of course, I will always caveat this section in every video by saying that you can pull for whoever the heck you want. Zenless especially does a very good job of having any character being able to clear the endgame content as long as you have good team compositions. In Hugo Vlad's case, and as you've seen throughout this video, he does fairly good even off typing. When he releases in just a few days, he will be the strongest attack unit we have available in the entire game. Additionally, there is a ton of Ice Week content, and if you're a new player, you might not even have Ellen or Miyabi. In fact, if you are lacking in the attack department, Hugo Vlad should be an absolute must pull for you, and you can build a really solid foundation for an account with him. However, we must be fair here and realize that there is a couple of problems with Hugo Vlad here too. Compared to some other units like Astriel, he is a lot more specialized and not nearly as versatile. Because his teams are a bit more specialized, he will need some more help with some limited units like Lighter, who is actually rerunning at the same time. If you are a relatively new player, this could be a potential strain on your hard-earned polychromes. Of course, don't get me wrong here, he is an absolutely amazing unit and I love his design. For reference, if you've played the Penacony story in Honkai Star Rail, you know I absolutely love Aventurine, and they're kinda in the same vein of character. However, there is one other concept to realize about Hugo's release timing. If you've seen the 2.0 trailer, which will be coming out right after 1.7, then you also saw the amazing characters that will debut soon. In fact, we've already got the drip marketing for our next 3 agents. Let's just say if the next Void Hunter, Miss Yi Zhuan, is anything like the one we already have in the game, that unit will be an absolute must-pull for everybody who plays. Not only this, the second half will feature Ju Fufu, who's really cute in her own right. And of course, we can't forget about our A-rank Panda Man. The reason I bring these characters up is that they are going to be very important to pull. This ultimately hurts Hugo's release timing a little bit, and the same thing kinda happened to Lighter. Remember back of November of last year when Lighter released, he was immediately followed up by Miyabi, who was the best unit in the entire game right now, unless you count Astriel. However, once we know more about Yi Zhuan, that'll make our decision a lot easier. Ultimately though, if you want to get Hugo, you will absolutely reap the rewards, and he is an amazing character through and through. For those of you who want a little bit extra power out of our husbando, let's talk about his Mindscapes. And yes, I finally remembered to record the Mindscape footage. We already talked about Mindscape 1 being that crit rate 12% boost, crit damage 30%, conditional in the Dark Abyss reverb state. Mindscape 2 is even more powerful and is probably my favorite one for Hugo. When you use ultimate to trigger Totalize, it will not end the enemy's stunned state. As you'll see in this clip, this means you can immediately follow it up with EX special attack for not one, but 2 total triggers of Totalize, basically double the damage. I alluded to Mindscape 4 towards the beginning of the video. Whenever a charge shot hits an enemy, Hugo's attacks against that target will ignore 12% ice resistance for 15 seconds, with repeated triggers resetting the duration. Mindscape 6 is just hilarious to see in combat. First, all of Hugo's shooting attacks will trigger that Dark Abyss reverb state, aka that crit rate and crit damage boost. Also for free, you get a 60% further damage increase on any Totalize effect. The finishing move of EX Special will also trigger Totalize when the enemy isn't stunned, boosting the damage multiplier of that move by a fixed 1000%. Basically, this turns Hugo into a lone wolf. Yeah, sorry Lycone, that was a bad pun. This means you can pretty much leave him on the field indefinitely, although it is still more valuable to get those full Totalize from the stun meter. But there you have it for our full Hugo Vlad husbando guide. I switched up the style of these kinds of videos here for this one, so let me know if you actually enjoyed it this way or 2 separate videos, one for his value and one for his build. Either way, reply in the comments below if you are gonna pull for Hugo Vlad and what you think about him. I would love to discuss him and Zenless Zone Zero as a whole with you all. Make sure to also like this video if it helped in any way, and subscribe for plenty more Zenless Zone Zero, especially for early access videos coming out for those 2.0 characters. In the meantime, good luck on your Hugo Vlad pulls. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.